There is a kind of silence that does not come from quiet. It comes from shock. From the moment your entire body stops working because your eyes have just seen something your brain refuses to accept. That is the silence that fell over Marcus Hale on the night of his own wedding. Not because the music stopped. Not because the guests stopped talking. But because the woman mopping the floor in the corner of that grand ballroom was the same woman he had put out of his house on a rainy Thursday night 7 years ago. The same woman who had begged him to listen. The same woman whose voice he had chosen to silence. And she was pregnant. 7 months, at least. Moving slowly, carefully, with the weight of a life she was carrying completely alone. Marcus stood frozen at the center of his own celebration, champagne glass still raised in the air, and the whole room blurred around him. Before we go any further, let us know in the comments where you're watching from, we'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. To understand what happened that night, you have to go back to the beginning. Back to before the penthouse, before the business empire, before the name Marcus Hale meant anything to anyone. You have to go back to a small 2-bedroom apartment in Baltimore, Maryland, where a 23-year-old man with $50 in his wallet and a dream that most people called foolish used to sit at a scratched kitchen table drawing business plans on the backs of envelopes. That man was not wealthy. He was not connected. He had nothing except an idea and a woman named Serena who believed in that idea before it was worth believing in. Serena Cole was the kind of woman who did not make noise about her love. She showed it quietly, consistently, in the way people who have never had much learn to love, with their whole chest and nothing held back. She worked double shifts at a pharmacy on weekdays and sold homemade lunches on weekends just to make sure Marcus could keep the lights on while he built something. She never complained. She never asked when. She never made him feel like a burden for not yet being what he was trying to become. And Marcus, back then, saw her clearly. He told anyone who would listen that Serena was the reason he had not quit. She was his ground. They married young. A small ceremony, folding chairs borrowed from the church, rice thrown by neighbors. No honeymoon. They could not afford one. But Marcus took her hand that afternoon and told her that one day he would give her everything she had given up for him. Serena smiled the way she always smiled, not with excitement, but with a deep, settled knowing. She was not marrying a promise. She was marrying the man. The business started slowly. Marcus was in logistics and supply chain consulting, a field that rewarded patience more than passion. For 3 years, nothing dramatic happened. He took small contracts. He reinvested every dollar. Serena continued working, continued sacrificing, continued being the kind of woman who packed his lunch and left sticky notes on his laptop that said things like, "I believe in you more than you know." And slowly, gradually, the business began to grow. A mid-size contract here. A partnership there. Then one larger contract that changed the numbers completely. By the time Marcus was 31, his company was pulling 7 figures annually. By 33, it had crossed into the kind of territory that changes how people look at you. And that is where the story takes a turn that you will recognize, because it is a turn that happens in real life more often than anyone wants to admit. Wealth does not change who you are. But it does change who is around you. And who is around you will slowly begin to change everything else. Marcus's college friend, Derek Owens, came back into his life around this time. Derek had always been charming in the way that certain people are charming, effortlessly likable, quick with a joke, the kind of man who made every room feel easier. He became Marcus's shadow. His sounding board. His closest companion in what Marcus described as the loneliness of success. Because success, at that level, is oddly lonely. Old friends pull back. You second-guess who is genuine. Derek seemed genuine. He had known Marcus before the money, which Marcus interpreted as loyalty. What he did not see was that Derek had also been watching the money grow with a very specific kind of interest. Marcus's mother, Donna, and his 2 sisters, Patrice and Lena, had also become more present. Not in the way family should be present, steady, loving, unconditional, but in the way that proximity to wealth makes certain people hover. They were opinionated. They were vocal. And from the very beginning, they had never fully accepted Serena. She was too quiet. Too plain. She did not carry herself the way they felt a wealthy man's wife should. Patrice once told Marcus directly that Serena lacked ambition, which was a strange thing to say about a woman who had single-handedly kept the household running for years while her husband built his empire. But Patrice was not interested in history. She was interested in image. The whispers started small. A comment here. A raised eyebrow there. Derek, over dinner one evening, casually mentioned that he had seen Serena talking to a man outside the pharmacy where she used to work. He said it lightly, almost like it was nothing. But the way he said it, with that slight pause, that almost smile, planted something in Marcus's mind that was never meant to grow into anything. Except it did. Because Derek kept watering it. A few weeks later, he showed Marcus a screenshot of a text conversation. He claimed someone had sent it to him. The texts appeared to show Serena in conversation with a man named Calvin, someone she had apparently known years earlier. The messages were intimate. Affectionate. They read like something between two people who had never truly let go of each other. Marcus did not ask Serena about it immediately. He sat with it. He stewed. He looked at her differently at dinner that night, and the night after that. He began noticing things that had always been innocent but now felt suspicious, a laugh that went on too long, a phone screen tilted slightly away, a moment of distraction. None of it was anything. All of it, in his altered mind, was evidence. By the time he finally confronted her, he had already half-convicted her. He came at her with the certainty of a man who believed he already knew the truth, which meant he was not looking for answers. He was looking for a confession. Serena was blindsided. She had no idea what he was talking about. She asked to see the messages. He showed them to her. She told him flatly, looking him directly in the eyes, that those messages were not from her. That she did not know how they had been created. That Calvin was someone she had briefly dated before she and Marcus had ever met, someone she had not spoken to in over 8 years. She was calm. She was clear. She did not beg or panic or spiral. She spoke the way a person speaks when they know the truth is on their side, because the truth was. But Marcus heard her composure as coldness. He interpreted her lack of tears as guilt. He had been listening to Derek and his family for months by that point, and their voices had colonized the space in his mind where his own judgment used to live. He told her to get out. It was a Thursday. It was raining. The kind of rain that does not pour dramatically but just falls steadily, cold and indifferent. Serena stood at the door of the house they had shared together, the house she had helped him buy, and she looked at him with an expression he would spend years trying not to remember. She picked up the bag she had packed while he was in the other room, because somehow she had known this was coming, and she walked out. She paused at the door, her hand on the frame, and she said something. Her voice was low and the rain swallowed part of it, and Marcus, in his anger, did not ask her to repeat herself. He closed the door. He went back inside. He told himself he had done the right thing. He had not heard what she said. He would not understand what she said for 7 more years. In the months that followed, Marcus's world moved forward the way worlds do, with a kind of brutal indifference to what has been lost. The divorce was filed. Derek helped him through it, remained close, remained supportive. His mother and sisters expressed relief in the way they expressed most things, without subtlety. Marcus threw himself into the business, which continued growing. 3 years after the divorce, he met Victoria Chen at a charity gala, smart, polished, and entirely comfortable in the world Marcus now inhabited. They dated for 2 years. They got engaged. The wedding was planned for a Saturday evening at the Hargrove estate just outside of Philadelphia. 400 guests. A 12-piece band. Crystal chandeliers. The kind of event that gets photographed for lifestyle magazines. Nobody thought to ask what Serena Cole was doing. Serena, after the night Marcus closed the door, had walked 4 blocks in the rain before she sat down on a bus bench and allowed herself 1 minute of complete breakdown. 1 minute of her hands shaking and her breath coming in pieces and the weight of everything crashing against her chest. Then she stood back up. Because she had to. Because she had just found out 3 days before that she was pregnant. She had tried to tell him that night. That was what she had said at the door, in the rain, in the sentence Marcus had not listened to. She had said, "Marcus, I'm carrying your child." She had said it quietly because she was exhausted and heartbroken and she was not the kind of woman to weaponize something sacred. But he had not heard her. And she had decided, in the weeks that followed, that she would not chase him with that information. Not because she was proud, but because she had looked into the eyes of a man who had chosen to believe a lie over her, and she understood something clearly: a man who could do that was not yet ready to be a father. She would raise this child. She would do it alone. And she did. 7 years is a long time. Long enough for a child to learn to walk and talk and read and ask questions about the father she has never met. Serena named her daughter Maya. She worked 2 jobs for the first 2 years, a pharmacy technician by day, a home delivery driver in the evenings. She moved into a small apartment in a neighborhood where the rent was manageable and the neighbors looked out for each other. She saved. She budgeted in a way that would have impressed any financial advisor. She got Maya into a good school through sheer persistence and a lot of parent advocacy meetings. She built something from nothing, which, if you think about it, was exactly what she had done once before for a man who had not appreciated it. She had taken the contract cleaning work 6 months earlier because the pharmacy she worked for had been acquired by a larger chain and her position had been eliminated. A friend had connected her with an event services company that staffed upscale parties and corporate events. The pay was decent. The hours worked around Maya's school schedule. She had no idea, when she accepted the assignment on that 3rd Saturday in October, that the event was a wedding. She had even less idea whose wedding it was. She found out when she arrived at the Hargrove estate and saw the name on the event board at the entrance: Marcus and Victoria, forever begins tonight. She stood in the parking lot for a long moment. She thought about leaving. She thought about calling her supervisor and saying she was sick. She thought about a lot of things. And then she thought about the electricity bill due on Monday and Maya's school trip payment that was already 2 weeks late, and she went inside. She put on her uniform. She picked up her mop. She did her job. She had been managing to stay in the service corridors and near the perimeter of the room for most of the evening. The chandeliers were bright but she kept her head down. Until a guest near table 7 knocked over a full glass of red wine. Until the floor manager pointed her in that direction. Until she walked forward, pregnant and careful, 7 months along with a child she had not yet told Marcus about, because that story is longer and we will get to it, and she looked up for just a moment because the room had gone oddly quiet around her. And Marcus was standing 15 feet away staring at her as if the world had stopped rotating. She did not look away. That was the first thing he noticed. Every expectation he had, that she would be ashamed, diminished, broken by what her life had become, dissolved in the single steady gaze she returned. She looked at him the way someone looks at a place they have already moved on from. Quietly. Without urgency. Without anger. Without need. His fiancée Victoria was at his side, holding his arm, smiling at something a guest had just said. She noticed the change in Marcus before anyone else did. His body had gone rigid. His face had changed in a way she could not name. She followed his eyes across the room to the woman with the mop and the swollen belly and the composure of a woman who had long since made peace with her own story. Victoria's smile stayed on her face but something behind her eyes shifted. She touched Marcus's arm. He did not respond. The evening moved forward the way things do when truth has entered a room but hasn't yet been spoken aloud. Marcus found an excuse to leave the main hall. He went looking for Serena. He found her in the service corridor near the kitchen, sitting on a folding chair, her hands resting on her stomach, eyes closed. He stood in the doorway. She heard him. She opened her eyes. She looked at him with the same unhurried clarity she had carried all evening. "Serena," he said. She looked at him for a moment. Then she said, "Marcus." That was all. His name and her name. But the 7 years between those two words were a universe. He asked if she was okay. She said she was fine. He asked whose, and then he stopped. Because in asking the question he already knew was wrong, something in his chest cracked open. He looked at her. She was 7 months pregnant and she had not contacted him once in 7 years, and she was mopping floors at his wedding. And he could not finish the sentence. She did not make him. "She's not yours," Serena said quietly. "She's from someone I met 4 years ago. We're not together anymore. It didn't work out." She said it without malice. Without drama. Just a fact delivered simply. "But Maya is," she added. And then she stood up slowly, carefully, and she looked at him one more time. "Maya is 7 years old, Marcus. She has your forehead and your stubbornness, and she has never once asked about her father without me wondering what I was going to say when she was old enough to understand." The silence after that sentence lasted a long time. Marcus sat down on the chair next to the one she had just vacated. He put his head in his hands. He asked her how. He asked her why she had never told him. She reminded him, quietly, that she had tried to tell him that night at the door. In the rain. While he was closing it. He remembered the moment. He remembered not listening. He felt sick. She told him about the 7 years. Not all of it, but enough. The nights she had cried in a bathroom with the tap running so Maya wouldn't hear. The moment Maya, at 4 years old, had pointed at a man in the park and asked if that was her daddy. The school plays where the other kids had fathers in the audience and Maya had looked at Serena and said, "It's okay, Mama. You're enough." That sentence, "You're enough, Mama," from the mouth of a 4-year-old, was the sentence that had broken Serena more than anything Marcus had ever done. What happened next took time to unravel, but it began that same night. Victoria, who was nobody's fool, had noticed her groom disappear for 25 minutes at his own wedding reception. She followed the route a server pointed her down and found Marcus and Serena in the corridor. She stood in the doorway and took in the entire scene in about 8 seconds. She was perceptive in the way that intelligent people are perceptive. She did not need an explanation to understand the outline of what she was looking at. The wedding did not collapse dramatically that evening. It did not end in a public scene. Victoria was too composed for that, and Serena would never have allowed herself to be the center of that kind of chaos. What happened instead was a series of quiet, difficult conversations over the next 72 hours that dismantled the wedding the way you take apart a structure that was built on a shaky foundation, carefully, piece by piece, until it becomes clear that what was standing was never as solid as it looked. Victoria ended the engagement 4 days later. She told Marcus that she did not end it because of Serena. She ended it because of what Serena's presence had revealed about Marcus, that he was a man still carrying an unresolved life, a man who had never gone back to look at what he had broken, and she could not build a future with someone who had not yet finished with his past. Derek Owens was the part of this story that did not stay hidden. It came out over the following weeks in a way that real truths tend to come out, not in a single dramatic revelation, but through accumulation. A mutual friend of Marcus and Derek's happened to mention, in an unrelated conversation, that Derek had once dated a woman who worked in graphic design. That detail sat in Marcus's mind for a few days until another memory connected to it. He had once seen, years ago, on Derek's laptop, a design program open to what looked like a phone screenshot. He had thought nothing of it at the time. He thought about it now. He hired someone to look into it. The fabricated messages had taken approximately 4 hours to produce. Derek had used a design contact to recreate the interface. He had constructed the screenshots from nothing. The reason was exactly what you might expect. Derek had been in preliminary discussions with an investor group that had also been considering backing Marcus's company. He had not wanted the competition. He had wanted the market position Marcus occupied. And the most efficient way to remove Marcus from his own life, Derek had calculated, was to remove the one person who was keeping Marcus grounded. Marcus confronted Derek. Derek did not deny it for long. The confrontation was not cinematic. It was a Wednesday afternoon in an office. Derek sat across a table, looked at the surface of it for a while, and then said that he had told himself it would not affect Marcus too badly. That Marcus was strong. That he would recover. That the business would be fine. He said it without looking up, which told Marcus everything about the character of the man he had called his best friend. Marcus reached out to Serena 3 weeks after the wedding. He did not come to her apartment. He sent a letter. A handwritten one. 11 pages, which tells you something about the weight of what he needed to say. He did not ask for reconciliation. He did not ask for a second chance at their marriage. He asked, first and most urgently, for the chance to be a father to Maya. He acknowledged in the letter what he had done. He named it plainly. He did not dress it up or soften it or ask for understanding he had not earned. He wrote, near the end, that he had spent 7 years building something that looked like success and felt like a house with no furniture in it, and he had never understood why until a woman mopping a floor had looked at him without need and he had realized, for the first time, what it felt like to be someone else's disappointment. Serena read the letter twice. She set it down. She looked out the window for a while. Then she went to pick Maya up from school. She did not call him that day. Or the next. She called him on the 4th day, in the evening, after Maya was asleep. She told him she was not interested in restarting anything between them. She told him that ship had not just sailed, it had long since reached a different shore entirely, and she had built a life on that shore, and she was not leaving it. But she also told him that Maya deserved to know her father. That she had never told Maya to hate him or fear him or dismiss him. She had simply told Maya that sometimes adults make mistakes and that love is complicated. Maya was old enough now to have her own relationship with him, and Serena would not stand in the way of that. But she would also not force it. She would let Maya decide. She set her conditions clearly and without apology. And Marcus agreed to every single one of them. The first time Marcus met Maya was a Saturday morning at a public park. Serena was there. Maya held her mother's hand and looked up at this man she had seen in photographs. Serena had shown her a few, the old ones, the ones from when Marcus was still the man Serena had believed in, and Maya studied him the way 7-year-olds study things. Completely. Without performance. She said, "You look like me." Marcus nodded. He could not speak right away. He crouched down to her level and he said, "I think you look like you. I think I'm just lucky you let me see it." Maya considered this. Then she said, "Okay." And she took his hand and pointed at the swings and asked if he could push her. And he did. Serena sat on the bench and watched. She did not feel love for him the way she once had. She did not feel much bitterness either, by that point, because she had processed most of it in the years he had not been there. What she felt watching him push their daughter on a swing, laughing at something Maya said, was something quieter and harder to name. Something like relief. The kind that comes not from things being fixed but from things finally being honest. There is no tidy ending to a story like this. Life does not do tidy. Maya grew to know her father. It was awkward and occasionally painful and full of the kinds of questions that 7-year-olds ask without realizing they are devastating. Why didn't you want me before, being among the hardest? Marcus answered every question honestly. He did not make excuses to a child. He said that he had made serious mistakes and that he was sorry and that he was here now. That was all a child needed to hear, and somehow it was enough. Serena went back to school part-time and completed her pharmacist license 2 years later. She moved into a better apartment. The second pregnancy came to term, a healthy boy she named Eli, whose father remained absent by his own choice, which was a loss Serena grieved but did not allow to consume her. Marcus, true to his word, provided financially for Maya's education and was present for school events and birthdays and the ordinary Tuesdays that make up a life. He and Serena were not friends exactly, but they were something mature and decent and reliable. They were people who had failed each other once and chosen, for their daughter's sake, not to fail her. Derek Owens was sued. The legal proceedings were civil and protracted and ultimately cost Derek more than he had ever gained. Donna and the sisters, Patrice and Lena, lived for a long time with the particular discomfort of people who told themselves they had wanted only the best and discovered that what they had wanted was something far more self-serving. Marcus never shouted at them. He simply became more distant, in the measured, unforgiving way of a man who has learned to distinguish between family and loyalty. The question this story leaves behind is one that does not have a clean answer, but it is the one that matters. What would you have done? If you were Serena, walking out of that door in the rain, carrying a life and a truth that nobody wanted to hear, would you have gone back? Would you have fought harder? Or would you have, like her, chosen the quiet dignity of building your own ground? And if you were Marcus, standing at that kitchen table with a fabricated screenshot in your hand and the voice of people you trusted filling your ears, would you have stopped? Would you have looked harder? Would you have chosen the woman who had carried you before you could carry yourself? Most of us want to believe we would have done the right thing. Most of us, if we are honest, are not entirely sure. And that uncertainty, that honest, uncomfortable question we ask ourselves, is exactly why stories like this one need to be told. Because the most expensive thing a person can lose is not a business, and it is not a reputation, and it is not even time. The most expensive thing you can lose is the trust of someone who chose to love you when you were worth nothing. Some people get a second chance with that kind of love. Most do not. And the difference is rarely dramatic. It is usually a single moment, a door, a rainstorm, a sentence spoken too quietly, where you choose whether to listen. Marcus did not listen once. He has been listening ever since. If this story touched something in you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And tell us in the comments, what did this story make you feel? Do you think Serena did the right thing by not forcing Marcus into Maya's life? Should she have told him sooner, or did she protect her daughter the right way? And if you were in Serena's position, could you ever truly forgive? There are no wrong answers. Just honest ones. Subscribe to African Untold Stories for more powerful stories that speak to the part of life that most people leave unspoken. Our next story is already waiting for you. African Untold Stories.